M. I have learned so much in organizational change and strategies this semester. Thankfully, I now feel more prepared to undergo organizational change with an open and understanding mindset. I really enjoyed reading Organizational Change Theory and Practice by Warner Burke, which is the first book that I can honestly say that I have a lot of takeaways from. The theories regarding levels of organizational change were most interesting to me. The study of individual, group, and larger system changes helped to inform some of my biggest takeaways. This is primarily because I have survived two major organizational changes, one with my current employer and one with my previous employer, the University of North Florida. Without saying which employer, I will say that one of those organizations did not seem to follow any organizational change model at all. A new executive came in, and within 1 year, without holding any meetings with any of the key stakeholders, he surplused personnel, he he took old positions and he upgraded them and then brought in people from his former employer. There's no surprise that there were many disgruntled employees. A few people retired early to avoid the chaos, and others moved to neighboring counties to gain employment elsewhere, and scores of people were left with low morale. On the other hand, the other organization that I worked for seemed to follow a change that closely resembles the one taught about in the book by Burke about John Cotter's 8-stage process of organizational change. It's on pages 3 through 4. The leaders of this particular organization even gave us a reading assignment to all employees, from persons in the C-suite on down to office assistants and parapros. The book was entitled Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. The book gave practical steps on how to avoid pitfalls by practicing a few key principles: anticipate and prepare for change, overcoming fears, envisioning success, and enjoying the change. It was humorous, and it was about 4 mice. Their names were Haw, Hem, Scurry, and Sniff, and they all represented the various changes that we could go through or how we handle change. Haw required evidence before he would accept any change. Hem felt afraid and anxious about change, and it taught us that it is important to help people visualize a positive future. Scurry embraced change and quickly looked to put it into action, and Sniff was highly aware. That book prepared us for the change. As an ordinary worker for that agency, for both of those agencies, I can now clearly explain what I couldn't articulate at that time. And after reading Burke's book, I was immediately taken back to both of those organization transformations. I was able to assess the change with a more professional viewpoint. I was able to recognize that one of those employers clearly took into account the stages of loss which employees may experience during changes, and there's a way to deal with them. Burke taught us about those stages: their shock, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. One of my employers followed that and accommodated for the feelings of its employees, and the other one did not. Literally, people were called into the HR office and either handed a pink slip or they were surplused without any sympathy. I was totally turned off to the idea of leadership. However, thanks to the plethora of projects that were assigned in this organizational change class, I better understand how organizational change is inevitable and that it can be a healthy and successful process when handled right. For instance, from viewing Out of the Clear Blue, the documentary on the dramatic post 9/11 organizational changes of Cantor Fitzgerald, I learned that unplanned changes can make us better and not bitter. As the CEO of Cantor stepped up to the plate and began making positive changes for his company and the surviving families. From the TED Talk by General McChrystal, I learned that leaders must be open-minded, willing to learn from anyone, as McChrystal himself said that soldiers who were in elementary school, when he was jumping out of airplanes, we're now teaching him how to navigate innovations, such as technological changes, such as the internet and things of that nature. I read multiple case studies like the merger of the Eleanor Foundation with the Chicago Foundation for Women, and through this study, I gleaned the importance of strong community rivals coming together to form new partnerships in order to pool your joint resources to help to better service your constituents instead of pulling against one another. From the Beth Israel and Deaconess Hospital merger, I learned that poorly planned mergers of some of the best agencies can go wrong if you do not have the right leader. It takes a strong leader committed to the agency, much like Paul Levy was. Levy leveled change using radical actions through teleological change theories, which assumes that organizations are purposeful and adaptive. Proponents of the teleological theory view development as a repetitive sequence of goal formation, implementation, evaluation, and modification of goals based on what was learned or intended. And within 2 years, Levy's efforts increased the revenues of the hospital. It lowered staff turnover and it improved staff optimism. From our book by Burke, I learned that organizational change is inevitable for company growth, but that the change is better received if handled with care. For instance, by studying evolutionary and revolutionary change, I learned that leaders should seek professional assistance from consultants if they want to make larger system changes without upsetting the office ecosystem. Further, larger system changes should occur gradually over time as opposed to quickly and without warning. I learned that equilibrium and punctuated equilibrium will happen, but we must be prepared to see the change. We must be prepared to be the change. Thank you for your time, Cohort M. Have a blessed day and a wonderful Christmas season.